So thank you everyone for joining the Wet Center webinar series. Today we'll be covering navigating the state of the irrigation industry with Aric Olson. So I'm going to go over Aric's background here. So Aric Olson is the president of Jain Irrigation. He is a thought leader, frequent speaker, and panelist for domestic agriculture and water issues. He has a BS in chemical engineering and a master's of business administration MBA to go along with 25 years of manufacturing and distribution company experience in which he held responsibilities for manufacturing, distribution, engineering, sales and marketing, and human resources. He has been a member of Jain Irrigation's management team since 2006, president since 2007, and responsible for successfully integrating 8 major acquisitions into the leading global irrigation technology company in the world in the last 10 years. He is a past president of the Irrigation Association and a founding committee member and past chairperson of Blue Tech Valley. He is currently the co-chair of the executive committee for the IIC, the Irrigation Innovation Consortium. He is a certified Six Sigma Black Belt and manager of quality operational excellence from the American Society of Quality. He is a certified supply chain professional and certified in production and inventory management by APICS and the Association for Operations Management. Additionally, he is a certified agricultural irrigation specialist and certified irrigation designer by the Irrigation Association. He also supports the local community with service on the Fresno County Workforce Investment Board as a past director and vice chairperson. Aric lives in Fresno, California, the USA headquarters for Jain Irrigation, with his wife and 2 sons. Quick background on Jain Irrigation. Jain is a fully integrated global food plant production company recognized by Harvard Business to be one of the 5 global sustainability champions in the G20 for lifting people out of poverty. Their irrigation manufacturing capabilities include everything from behind the pump to the flush valve at the end of the lateral and everything in between, including drip irrigation. They lead the industry in manufacturing technology, owning both the extrusion and mold manufacturing equipment providers. Jain leads plant science research globally across a variety of food crops and is staffed with some of the world's leading research scientists. With the Gandhi Library, Jain now houses the prominent collection of the world's best plant science knowledge in a single facility. Their agronomic knowledge is integrated from our world-class tissue culture operations through their food processing businesses. They research, educate, advance, manufacture, finance, propagate plants, and purchase produce for processing, all to fulfill the Jain mission. Leave this world better than you found it. So easy to say. We've got a great speaker here today to speak on the industry, very well qualified with background. Aric, just want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Ben. Good to see you.
Yeah, just to kick us off, Aric, one of the first questions that comes to mind are obviously with your background in the space, being in it for so long and leading one of the leading companies in the industry. What are some of the future challenges you're seeing California agriculture facing, and obviously Jain being at the forefront of addressing those challenges?
Well, being and working in agriculture really my whole life, and being a part of family farming back in Minnesota, and I took a little hiatus to work in different industries right after college. There's always some challenges, and they're always significant in agriculture, and today in California it's no different. We have this SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and what that's going to do to our businesses. Land prices are high, there's land use issues, environmental management that we have to worry about. Commodity pricing is super low right now for a lot of the crops in California. That's been an issue. We've had a strong dollar, and that typically we do well when we have a weaker dollar. Water pricing, water availability, significant issues. And then, this year we're dealing with COVID, and that's the demand changes that put on us was a big issue for our farmers in the Central Coast, and it's difficult to operate in with these conditions today. But I think look, we're doing a pretty good job. The farmers are doing a fabulous job keeping food on everyone's tables and in the grocery stores. We live in an amazing place. California is also unique that we have nearly over 8 million acres of irrigated farmland in California, and 40% of the water use in California goes to agriculture use. So I think people know that. But Also, though, 4% of California's total energy usage goes to moving and pumping and pressurizing our irrigation systems. Or the amount of energy on farm, it's about 70% of what farmers' energy consumption goes into pressurizing and pumping water. So, you know, in this irrigation space, we've also dealt with drought over the last several years, and this is always on our mind. How much water are farmers going to get, and how do we manage that? You know, these 8 million acres are using, you know, around 25 million acre feet of water on a typical year. On a drought year, we're going to be pumping quite a bit more groundwater, maybe you know, 10 or 15% more than what we would get otherwise from surface areas. So that's kind of a big issue. Now with SGMA coming, I think this is probably the biggest thing on all of our minds. What will that do to California agriculture and our irrigation businesses? If we have a drought and you have SGMA and we have to have surface water and groundwater in balance, you know, that could fallow 800,000 up to 1 million acres. So of that 8 million acres, we could lose 1 million acres of production. And also over the past maybe 10 or 15 years, our water demand is really hardened around this 25 million acre feet. So now that when we have to be in balance with SGMA and you have a hardened water demand, I mean, that can really create some issues. So I think we're going to see cropping patterns change. And, you know, I think during this hour, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So we got a lot of short-term challenges with pricing, dollar strength, labor, COVID, but bigger things that are facing the industry. And really the neat thing is if you look back, say 20 years, we're always facing something in agriculture, and today is no different. And I think we'll definitely rise to the challenge, and we've got technology to help us that's coming in, and we've come a long way with irrigation technology that, you know, that's really what this presentation and discussion's about today.
Yeah. So looking back at recent history, at least with regards to irrigation technology, where are we today and how far have we come? So I think you mentioned that we've always been experiencing challenges. Are we better prepped today to handle the challenges of tomorrow than we were maybe 20, 30 years ago to handle those challenges? How are we looking as an industry?
Yeah, our industry is just really fascinating. We have a lot of people that join the industry really never leave because it's such an amazing industry. We're doing really good things, helping feed the world by using less resources, less water, fertilizer, energy. And so it's kind of it feels good to be in the industry and help farmers grow food and feed. And then we got a tremendous history as well in our business in the irrigation industry. And if you just go to the wet center where you guys are at, you have fabulous kind of a history display when we're out of COVID, and you can go. I'd recommend everyone to go see some of the artifacts that show the early innovations in irrigation going back to the 1930s, 40s, 50s, the original sprinklers that were developed for our industry. You know, going back a little bit more recent, maybe when I was a young boy, you know, I irrigated our farm by hand watering. In Minnesota, we had vegetable farms, and we did all hand watering, and we put water in milk buckets and small tractors and did hand watering, and we didn't have any technology. You know, in California, you say look at the 1980s, a lot of the innovations were sprinkler irrigation, and most of the land was flood irrigated, and then sprinkler irrigation really came in the 70s and 80s. And this was, you know, fueled some tremendous growth from companies like Rain for Ren or WaterTech Egg Supply or other companies that were supplying rental pipe and sprinklers. And this is a really unique innovation. And then the invention of drip irrigation in the mid-1960s, and that really became mainstream in the early 80s through the 1990s, led by, you know, Larry Rompel at Agri Valley, and you know, he did a tremendous job helping build drip irrigation through his dealerships through the valley. So it's fun to watch what's happened in our industry. A lot of times we get caught up with where we are today, dealing with COVID and other things. But I don't know if everyone knows this, but in California, we now have more drip and micro irrigation acres than we do gravity-fed irrigated acres in California. So from the USDA census of 2018, there is now 4.1 million acres of drip and micro and 3.9 million of gravity-fed irrigation. And when you look at the trend of drip and micro growth in California, it's really a unique place. And this industry has grown compound since the 1990s at 7% growth rate, compound since the 1990s. So now it hasn't been straight up. There's been years where, prices go up or down, but what an amazing story for the industry to have that growth over so many years. There's over 27,000 farmers using drip irrigation technology today in California versus 14,000 using gravity-fed irrigation. So, a lot of times people will talk to me and say, well, what does the future look like? Haven't we developed all of the land? At some point, when does the growth of drip and micro irrigation stop or slow down? And you still say, well, there's 3.9 million acres of gravity-fed irrigated acres. Now, if you drive through the valley, you say, where are they? Well, they're on a lot of crops like maybe alfalfa or some other crops where it might, or corn or sorghum, something like that, where it's a high-density crop. Maybe it's a little more challenging to use drip or micro irrigation. But definitely, it's a huge opportunity for growth here. In the space of micro irrigation, and it's amazing technology. And I just put a little plug in for our company. In 1985, this is really where our Jain Irrigation Company was founded. The chairman of our company and the founder, Bavarial Jain, came to Fresno, California, to the 1985 Irrigation Association show at downtown Fresno at the Fresno Convention Center, and he found drip irrigation, this really cool technology that puts water and fertilizer at the roots of the crop and can do amazing things. And he really is credited for bringing that technology that he found in Fresno, California at the Irrigation Association show back to India, and he developed a whole industry out of this. He's really credited for being the father of micro irrigation in India as a result. He then formed a partnership with Hardy Irrigation, and kind of the rest is history. With that. And so he's done an amazing job. He's given, our company's gotten so many awards for helping small farmers climb out of poverty. And all that started in Fresno. So the company's got a big passion for the Fresno, California area.
Excellent. Excellent. Just taking one moment here to the audience. If you have any questions, make sure in the Q&A box, feel free to put those in at any point. We'll be covering those towards the end. Okay, Aric. So, going to where we were, transitioning to where we are today, what trends are you seeing as far as in the irrigation industry, where things are headed? Maybe some trends that are kind of coming to an end as well.
Yeah, so this is kind of a interesting topic to think about, and I'm no better able to forecast this than anyone else here, but it's fun to think about and try and have a dialogue. I would say the first trend that you're seeing, and the power companies see it for sure, is when we have all this land converted from gravity-fed irrigation to drip and micro, is the pretty big change in power consumption that's happening in agriculture. When we have to pressurize our drip systems to 35 PSA or maybe a little bit more to get through the filters and through the valves and to the end of the line, versus a gravity fed that might need a little less pressure. That is something that we have to create that power and so be able to supply that for the farmers. That's a pretty big issue and a trend. And so figuring out how to reduce our pressure requirement there, I think, is important. And we have the technology and capabilities to do that. We have the technologies and capabilities to manage this power bill and the requirement, and to be able to help farmers manage those energy bills. And then when you look at the efficiencies that you get in drip and micro irrigation, putting water and fertilizer at the roots, it's actually a better environmental energy footprint than using just pure gravity fed. So that is a big trend that we need to be aware of and address and work on as an industry, is this management as we convert more to drip and micro, is managing this energy that goes along with that. There are other things that we can talk about there, but in general, I think everyone knows that we're having a lot of consolidation that's happening in agriculture. The big farms are getting bigger, and we're having that.
Mm-hmm.
We're having this crop changes that you're seeing. Talked about the flood to drip conversion. Labor is a huge issue. If you can get it, if you can get labor, you're paying a lot more for it today due to minimum wage laws and overtime laws. That's a huge thing that we don't really talk about so much, but that's raised pressure then for the farmer and the grower. We have food safety and traceability issues and requirements that we've never really had before, and that's a lot of extra work for the growers to do. We've got export, import imbalances. We've got a lot of investors in the space, buying land, buying companies, wanting returns on investment. There's water laws. We have a significant demographics in agriculture in our business that are really challenging. Our farmers are getting older. We do have younger generations coming in, but the average age of the farmer continues to go up. And then we have this dollar trending challenge. Specifically in irrigation, we do have these demographic challenges. And earlier I mentioned Larry Rumpel, who's the founder of AgriValley. He founded that company in 1983. And during this time, it was really, really unique. Is when drip was, a new technology, and Larry Rumpel had the vision. He says, I'm going to, go promote that more. And there was a number of key people in our industry. I'd really call them like the fathers of modern day California irrigation, that they, many of them worked at this Ren O'Neill company in the 1980s. And Larry Rumpel, he started AgriValley in 1983. Mike Conrad was with Rain for Ren and worked at Golden State. He founded IDC. These are some of the largest dealers in the space. You have John Tack, who founded U.S. Irrigation. Elsco Geyer is pretty big. Jim Claren, Pacific Southwest. Hydrotech, Cal West Rain, Larry Isham. The Jain and Russ at Landmark, they've really built the business that we know today. Now also Rain for Rent has a good footprint in micro irrigation. So these companies and leaders for 30 plus years created this business that we have and enjoy today. And many of those gentlemen are in their mid 60s, and we hope we enjoy every day we get to work with them and appreciate what they've done for us in the industry that we have today, and they got us on a really good path. But it's when you get older, and I'm a little older, and at some point you think about retiring, and we've had some changes here. So there's been some changes with consolidation on the irrigation dealer distribution side. We've had private equity investments that have come in, private equity investors that have bought into the companies. Some of them are called, you might remember Main Street Capital that bought Hydrotech, Arable Capital, which is doing a pretty good roll-up right now. Prospect Partners is the owner of Landmark. We have Clearview Capital that's doing a little bit of a roll-up. And then we have agribusiness companies like RDO making some purchases, WaterTech Ag Supply and Quita. You have, ourselves, we invested in AgriValley and IDC as a partnership in distribution. And so there's kind of large investments, and we're getting a big consolidation among the irrigation dealers. And you're getting, more purchase power, more services, better quality systems, better designs. And this, I think, can all help the farmer. So those are huge changes. We've also had significant consolidations at the manufacturing level. I came from a consolidation. I worked in 2006 at a company called Ag Products. They were the inventor of the original compression coupler, where you put the hose in and it's kind of like the Chinese finger lock coupler. That's where I joined the industry in 2006 at Ag Products. They were acquired by Jain Irrigation in 2007. And kind of the companies that all make up Jain Irrigation are Wade Rain, Wade Pepco. Some of these names you might remember, Aquarius Brands, Ag Products, Chapin Watermatics, Point Source Irrigation, Nandan Jain. Nandan was Nan and Dan, those are combined. So a lot of consolidations with our company alone there, and you can see the consolidations. We've also had private equity come in and acquire large manufacturers. CME Opportunity Funds acquired John Deere Water back several years ago, and John Deere Water was a roll-up of T-Tape, Roberts, Plastro, and then the company combined with Eurodrip, and now today that's called Rivulus and owned by Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund company called Temasek. And it's a very large company, but when you look at, you know, how the size, scope, and scale of those companies, they're very massive companies, global companies. So we've become a pretty larger, stronger global industry. That's the other thing. A lot of these technologies were created in and around this area in California out of necessity. And over 20 years, we've become a really global industry and a global supply chain, which is really fascinating. It's helped us. It's also hurt us. In this COVID environment, when we had global supply chain shutdowns, just think, now today, we have all these products coming from all over the world, from Italy, France, Spain, Mexico, Israel, India, China, Turkey, all to put together systems in the USA. So that makes it very challenging when you have a situation like COVID, where previously we could travel freely around the world and products are moving around the world, and this got locked down. So this actually hurt us. So this consolidation wave, I think, is going to continue. We are still, when you think about all that consolidation, we're still a fragmented industry. We do not have real dominant players where someone might have 50 or 60% market share. We are in limited market share still, so I expect further consolidation. That's a little bit on the manufacturing and distribution side. You know, the technology trends are really interesting as well. And we're daily trying to sell technology and help growers, with labor and automation and things like that. And you're seeing similar trends, faster uptakes on technology. You're seeing, though, with COVID, which is really interesting, I think that more challenges with technology adoption because of COVID. It's been difficult to see farmers and get out and visit and share and show and demonstrate technologies, because with COVID, it's like we lost the whole growing season. You know, no one wanted to see you, so you couldn't show or demonstrate the technology. So if you didn't have something that was already helping the farm and farmer, you suffered this year. And so you might see some startups really struggling in this environment because you can't get out and sell. So crop trends in California, we've seen, we have 1.2 million acres now of nuts, permanent crops. I expect we're probably going to see less alfalfa grown over time, a little less value, takes a lot more water. So we'd probably expect that. Distribution uniformity is something that we're all focused on. Distribution uniformity is basically the uniformity of water application. How uniformly does that irrigation system put that out there? So if we apply the water uniformly, right, that's going to help us get a better yield and do a better job with our crops. I think it's hard to say where the average in the state is on distribution uniformity. We typically design irrigation systems to have a 0.93, maybe better, irrigation uniformity. And after several years, due to, systems wear a little bit, you might lose uniformity due to pressure changes or certain things like that. Probably the state of what is the average uniformity, distribution uniformity on the irrigation systems out there. It might be a 0.75 to 0.84. And that's using UC Davis mobile lab data along with Cal Poly's data from their selected sites, where they do these field evaluations to say what's the distribution uniformity. Now that is a huge opportunity for us in our space, in our industry, that when you have a 0.80 distribution uniformity, what does that mean, a 0.8? It really means 20% of your field is getting about, let's say it's a 40, say you're trying to put on 40 inches of water a year. It means 20% of this field, you're putting 6 inches more water on than 40. And 20% of the field is getting 6 inches less, so 34 inches. that's what that means. And then it's kind of a normal distribution of everything in between. And if you really want to have 40 inches applied on most of that field, well, you'd take 40 inches divided by 0.8, and you're going to need to put on 50 inches of water just to get most of the field to have 40 inches. So that's why the uniformity of these systems is so important, and why, you know, us manufacturers work so hard on coefficient of variation, and then the dealers want to put in good systems to have high DUs to start with, because that's pure expense. You guys put a great webinar a couple months ago with Scott Rhodes on. Scott Rhodes said the number thing we can do is help growers reduce their cost. And he was very, you know, he's a banker and he knows that, and he's been working at some of the largest farming companies in the world. And that's what we have to do, is focus on cost. So if you look at applying 40 inches of water versus 50, and what is the cost of that? You know, if you have 80 acres, you know, and your water cost is $25,000 a year for that 80 acres, and that might be using the average cost for, you know, water, you know, $67 per acre foot. That's kind of the average cost for the whole state. Some people have really high, you know, might be much higher, and other people have lower. But if you use $67 per acre foot, you know, that water budget cost to run that farm might be $25,000 a year for 80 acres. And if that's going to cost you 10% more, it's not only 10% more in the water, it's 10% more in the power and the fertilizer. And we know that nitrates move with groundwater, so then you're causing other issues. So when you think about the cost, and Scott's message still resonates with me, it's very important to get that distribution uniformity as high as possible on the initial design, use good gear, and use good maintenance, and use monitoring devices that can help you see, because you'd get a pretty quick payback if you had, you know, even less than a 0.8 DU doing something like that. So, you know, why is that important? Well, we have Sigma coming. We're gonna, if we don't do something or change, we're gonna have a lot of acres that are fallow. And so it's important to, you know, use the water that we have and make sure the systems are super uniform, and we're applying and we're doing the scheduling properly to do that. That'll help us also with having less labor, and also help us with this energy management situation.
Excellent. Well, just going back before we get into the technology side, from the wet center perspective, of course, I wanted to ask about the consolidation. So flipping it from just the industry perspective, but from the perspective of the customer, how are your customers, and how is the overall value of what Jain is able to provide has improved as a result of these consolidations taking place?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, again, I said we were fragmented today, but you go back 10 years and the industry was really highly fragmented. And a lot of our, the irrigation companies, the idea was, is if us as manufacturers, if we could become one-stop shop for buying all the parts for irrigation, if we could provide that service to the dealer, you know, everything after the pump, that was a tremendous value to the dealer, and the cost that it could take out of the supply chain. So you just have to call and place one PO, you get one shipment, and then we drop ship it to the farm. There's a tremendous amount of cost that get taken out that, you know, the dealer can share in that, and the grower would get a good system at a good price, all dropped in one. That was the idea. And many of the major manufacturers in the space then would work to do that, to either acquire technologies or partner with people to begin to carry full lines and be a full service dealer. And we have 3 to 5 companies now in the space that really can provide a lot of the parts after the pump in a one-stop shop. So that was kind of the benefit. And a lot of those benefits did go to the farmer. And so that's been, you know, on the equipment side, not non-technology side. And I guess this is technology, but it's a little more mainstream today than some of the technology we're going to talk about.
Sure. And one final question on Jain before we jump to the technology. One thing that fascinates me about a company like Jain that has had such a great reputation for so many years, has provided great service to their customers. Aric, from your perspective, what does Jain do different that customers always keep coming back to, the loyalty component, and then obviously maintaining that good reputation? What's the secret sauce there?
Well, the secret sauce is those 500 employees that work for Jain in the USA. They work hard every day. A lot of them come from farming backgrounds, are farmers themselves. They, believe in something bigger than just maybe making money. They want to make a difference in the world. They want to help save water. They want to help growers grow better food better. And that's just a unique passion that you see kind of cutting through all of our employees. So that's definitely there, and it's in a lot of companies in our industry. But definitely we're a mission-driven company. We focus on certifications. We're probably the most certified company. I appreciate on the bio that you read. I didn't, I'm sorry you had to read all that, but you can see I have a lot of certifications. I try to lead by example. We are the most certified company in the irrigation industry, and we put a tremendous focus on education and continuous development, and we want to be able to do that to provide benefits for our growers. So those are some of other ways we compete. You can see we're a fully integrated supply chain. Like, we own the equipment manufacturers. We have access to distribution. We like working in an integrated fashion, and I think that helps us provide solutions. We actually have food processing in California as well. So we not only sell irrigation and we have design and technology capabilities, but we actually buy produce back. We have an instant quick freeze company in Merced. So we're buying back vegetables and doing instant quick freeze and putting those in, frozen pizzas or burritos at McDonald's, for example. And we have an onion dehydration business in Northern California. So the grower is really the center of our business. So we really start there and think about how do we help the grower as best we can, do a better job with our equipment, and make sure that grower is successful. And no one does it better than how our parent company does it in India, and we're really trying to emulate that here. It's a little bit more challenging. Competition's pretty tough here in the USA, and the scope and scale is a little bit bigger, but we sure try. Our 400 to 500 Jain employees give it their best every day to do that.
Sure, great. So I know we spoke about some of what we would call technologies more mainstream now, so I don't know if we'd call that anymore. But looking back from some of the trends of years ago to more of the electronic technologies of today, how do these new technologies make their way to becoming mainstream and get on the farm? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, well, you guys are doing a tremendous service there, and that I really appreciate what you guys are doing at Valley Ventures and through the Wet Center and Blue Tech Valley. I had the pleasure of working with Claude Laval and Dave Zoldowski and Dan Clausen and Stuart Wolf and Heinrich Larson and Helly Peterson. Back in 2011, we had this vision to create this really awesome space for water companies to help all the water companies in the Central Valley be successful. And during this time, we learned that there was 200 water-related companies in the Central Valley, and we wanted to make this place where these companies could just thrive and then go national and go global and do a good job. And we started this group called Blue Tech Valley in 2011. And next year it'll be the 10-year anniversary of that. And I worked really hard on that with that team. I had some of my mentors, and it was absolute pleasure to work there with. And I'm thrilled to see you guys have carried the ball. I've really not been working with you guys since 2016. And you guys have done amazing things. You're helping and coach and guide startups and bringing them into the Wet Center to help incubate their businesses. So I think that's a huge piece of it. Like, how do you, that was always the thing or the challenge in the area, is we have all these companies, but we were always lacking like funding. We don't have the venture fund scene or funds coming in, and you guys have been really working on that and making progress. And you have tremendous business talent in the area and trainings through the cohorts that you're sending through. So I'm super impressed with what you're doing. I often say that I love coming to Jain every day. I love just coming and seeing, our factory and our employees and growers. But if my office wasn't at Jain, my second favorite office, or third favorite after being in the field with the farmers, my third favorite is to go to the Wet Center office. And when we had all these companies pre-COVID, you had all these companies in there, and they're working on amazing things and amazing technologies, and you just knew a handful of these companies are going to change our industry. And just the buzz around there and getting people to graduate and work there, it's really been a highlight of my career to see and do that. And you know, I'm really happy we were able to partner with some of those companies directly. We were able to make acquisitions of some of those. So this whole, just being involved in this ecosphere has really helped us a lot and really put us in a leadership position in terms of ag technology. Now, you know, this space is tough. This startup, what you're doing and getting these startups to go is really, really difficult. And there's a reason why we're the least digitized business in industry, agriculture, right? We go slow. Farmers got, you know, 1 shot a year sometimes, and they get 30 shots in their lifetime, and you can't risk a crop on some unproven technology. That's why we grow slower on the technology side, is because it needs to be proven before it goes to that farm, because we don't want to take a risk to that farmer's crop and livelihood. We need to support that. So that's one issue why we go a little slower. We do always have venture capital money coming in because they see this as a huge space, a huge opportunity. But a lot of times, because we go slower and the venture funds are not maybe patient with that, and they'll put a lot of pressure to grow site counts. You need to gain how many sales. So when we do that, then sometimes you give away sites free, and then once the site count though stops and it flattens out or goes down, then the venture funds stop, and then it creates a kind of a negative spiral. And so, I think it's typical what we're doing. We have some startups that succeed, and many that don't. But the ideas and the technology, and it's an amazing place, and I am glad we have people that are willing to take the shot and take the risk, because we wouldn't be where we are today if you don't have those risk takers. And so just looking at these companies, how they come through the incubation, companies like Jain, we watch those companies, we stay close to them, we partner with them. Maybe some want to be acquired, maybe some of them don't, and we're flexible to working with a variety of these technologies. But it's an interesting process, and you guys are doing a great job of facilitating their success. But there is some failure rates, right? And you're helping them kind of get through that and navigate that. And I think most people look to either you all, the university. Fresno State's got this amazing 1,000-acre farm. It's like a demonstration property there that you can show this technology in action. This is really unique in the U.S. So it's a big advantage for anyone in our space that wants to invent some technology around farming and agriculture to have this there and use that demonstration. Then people will trust Fresno State and the research that's being done. Like, there's some validation that we get. That's going to be more so than maybe a salesperson coming along. So I think the coaching and the guidance you're getting, the connection of the Fresno State, in the ecosphere we have in Blue Tech Valley, these are tremendous ways to get the word out. And there's larger companies like ours that can hopefully distribute some of these solutions that you find. You can distribute them nationally or even globally. As I said, we've become a global supply chain. The training, a lot of the training events that you guys do, that is really critical. They look to you for that. And as far as getting the technology to the farmer, though, it needs to be easy. It has to be a plug and play, right? I mean, it cannot be hard. It cannot be difficult. There's so much going on in growers' lives today. They got too many devices, too many dashboards to manage, and it just really needs to be easy. So I think it's important for us, more important, to make sure we have plug and play and things work for the farmer. And it provides real value is another thing that people talk about, but it's hard. And like Scott Rhodes says, focus on reducing costs. Don't try to sell yield improvements. Everyone says yield improvements, but there's 100 inputs that can impact yield, and it's very hard to prove idea that this yield was caused by my new widget that I'm selling.
Yeah. One question from the audience here from Juan. He asked, just I want to build because you have a great experience with not only being in the industry, but also understanding the university and kind of more of the academic side of things too. He asked, how do you see the university's research and extension need to be involved in the irrigation industry and irrigation management? Is there any vision or anything along those lines, Aric, that you could share as far as what would be ideal?
Well, that's a great softball for me, Ben. When you're talking about my background and one of my passions, I've been volunteering a lot, and for about 3 years now, I've been focused with the Irrigation Innovation Consortium, and this is really 5 universities, 5 regional universities, Fresno State's being one of them, Texas A&M, Kansas State, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Colorado State. These universities have come together in a public-private partnership under the Food FAR grant, and that's kind of the base funding. And so these kind of research partnerships where industry and you get some public support and you got the academia working together on research that can change our industry, I think is pretty exciting to me. And you say, well, how does this work? How does someone like us in industry work in an organization like this? Won't our competitors get all the information and just steal our research and go be faster and do something against us with it? I mean, that's the fear. The idea of the IIC is to focus on the white space industry, this pre-competitive space that we're not really in today, but where we're facing issues together. We talked about the energy, maybe broadband internet, satellite imagery, things that are out there a ways that might be 5-10 years out there that we can focus on to benefit, the growing community. This is, I think, the best way. If we can do that, then, and the idea is when you get these regional players, there's solutions in Texas that may be different in California, but the really unique thing is that there might be something that you think about because what you saw in Texas versus if you're in California every day, you just see the same thing, you'd miss this. And that's also, with a company like ours, we can bring a global perspective. We might see something in India on a 2-acre farm that could be applied here in California with a little different look and feel. So that's the other unique aspect of this IIC, and I think this is a great way for universities can work together on this research.
Excellent. So putting yourself in the shoes of an entrepreneur right now, looking at the irrigation industry, taking your perspective, if you were in their shoes, where would you see the areas of opportunity?
Yeah, so if you've been trained in like innovation or companies, they say go where. What are the problems? Go solve problems or pain points for the growers, right? So you can kind of. There's a lot of issues to work on, right? There's pain points we mentioned labor and water and nitrogen use efficiency and energy, right? These are all problem or pain points for farmers. So those are, typically when you're trained in business school, what to work on, that's what they say, solve problems, focus on the pain points. And so you can, those are kind of easy. But, I'd give you a few specifics, which, I'm a little bit excited about. The yield measurements, and we have 1.2 million of nut crops in California, and we typically take the yield of a field, and it might be a 40, 60, 80 acre field, and we take the whole yield number and we say, well, that's a 3,000 pound per acre yield, but we treat the whole field the same way. And anyone in agriculture knows there's some variation in that field in different soil types, or if we got problems with irrigation. And so this yield mapping, yield monitoring, understanding that is, I think, critical. once you have that yield map, you're going to probably see there's some distribution there. Let's say a 3,000 pound an acre almond farm, he might have, if he's got a standard deviation of say 8%, you know, he has yield varying on that field from maybe 2,500 acres to, or pounds an acre to 3,500 pounds an acre. So that's a pretty big variance in that field, right? 40 or 60 acres, you know, something like that. So, and the value of that crop, it can be significant. That can be a couple $1,000s an acre variation from the good to the areas really producing to not. And so if we can tighten up that variation and figure out then what's causing the problem, this is a huge opportunity for just, you know, generally improving. So that type of work, I think, is one that's already done, maybe in corn and soybeans. We do that a lot. You got yield monitors right in the combines, and you can see that variation. So that's again could be transferred here. So I see that as a huge opportunity there. And you know, getting I think satellite imagery is going to become mainstream. If you know, just go back 3 years ago, we were debating what is going to take over, drones for imaging, fixed wing aircraft, or satellite. And they all had plus or minus trade-offs, and we were just kind of trying to figure out what should we go with and what's better under what. And I think, to me, it's a little bit more clear today. They're very specialized, but the satellite imagery tools are just amazing. And you get so much, and you get a very tight resolution, a lot of information, all automatically. And so I think satellite imagery, you know, going back even 3 years ago, we were thinking, well, this is interesting. But today you're gonna see tremendous growth in satellite imagery, and that coming to the market. And you're gonna get yield estimates from that, water measurements, water balances. We have today, we're selling ETC measurements and maps on all the fields, and we have that integrated with soil moisture and autonomous irrigation control. So, yield measurements, yield mapping, satellite imagery, I think those are big areas. We have a lot of new crops that, you know, kind of are growing. We got hemp and cannabis that have been, you know, really growing in the last several years. Sustainable practices like plastics. Our industry puts out about 250 million pounds a year of plastics, polyethylene. And some of this goes into orchards for, say, 30 plus years, maybe half of it or more. And the other half, though, might go to vegetable crops where it's a short cycle. And we have to own that plastic as an industry and figure out how to sustainably reuse that. That's something that us people in irrigation are going to have to do and come up with solutions. Other opportunities, I think, are these low-cost, narrow-band IoT sensors. This is a fabulous. Now, we have this debate today, a lot like this imagery debate. We have a narrow-band IoT device with a LoRa radio and LoRa radio gateways. Which technology are we going to go? Are we going to have these radios, LoRa, you know, communicating in the field, or are we going to have this narrowband IoT device going right up through cellular? And I think there's going to be places for both, but that's hard to say what's going to happen there. There's the train.
And then, Ben, we do have a few questions in the actual Q&A if you want to look at those.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. That's the high-speed rail coming in slow speed.
A little slower.
A little slower. Was there a question, Ben? I didn't get that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. I didn't know if you were going to keep going on that, but so moving forward here, one of the areas that you discussed is farmers only have so many shots in their lifetime to get it right, and obviously they can't take the risk of a technology failing during such a critical stage. So, what can younger technology companies do to help bridge that gap? to where it maybe de-risks that for the farmer and makes it more palatable to take that risk or maybe engage with the technology without necessarily risking the whole farm, literally?
Yeah, partnering with manufacturers can help. Getting the tools on site on a farm like at Fresno State and proving it out, getting small plot tests, I think are important and critical. And then working with there are growers that are okay and comfortable with trying new technology and testing, and it's finding those partners as well. I don't really have a silver bullet other than that. It is really challenging. I'm glad people are trying things and experimenting, and that's how long term we move forward. But yeah, there are challenges. I think you got to start small scale and try a variety of samples and before you go across the larger fields, for sure.
Makes sense. Well, let's take a younger technology company, and let's say they're in a similar space. Aric, is there any way that you'd recommend a technology company to engage Jain or maybe get on your radar or anything along those lines, just to be considered for, I don't know what nature of relationship, but something in the future?
Yeah, this we're interested in. We participate in obviously the Blue Tech Valley Initiative, the IAC, the Irrigation Association. These are great ways to meet companies. So if you can go to the water conferences and see and meet the kind of the major manufacturers and find the the leaders or the people in charge of the technologies. Go to the Irrigation Association show. Now, we're not having one this year, it's virtual, but you can see several hundreds of manufacturers and companies there, and spend time there, cultivate relationships with the companies. We are a really tight-knit, small industry, and so if you can build these relations over time, I would say set some expectations. Think about going a little slower, just because we have this one shot at it with the farmer kind of deal. If we screw up the one shot, then the word travels fast, and then you get some negative news on something. Well, and everyone in the neighborhood says, well, that doesn't work, right? And then you're kind of a little out of luck, and then you're really digging yourself out of a hole. So as far as you can reach out to us at any time. We're very available. Open. You can find me easily. I'm in Fresno, but we have a group of people. I might have some, if you call me or email me, I might have someone reach out to you and look at it. But and I think this is available at all the companies in our space. They're all looking for, again, it's almost like this one-stop shop where we brought in drippers, sprinklers, filters, valves, tubing, and emitter line. We're going to need to do this on the technology. Everyone's going to need to have a satellite offering, a weather service offering, a dashboard offering, a controller. You're going to need these solutions to be effective for dealers and growers going forward. And so I think people are going to want to listen to, and being part of this startup ecosphere, it's fascinating to think about what these entrepreneurs have in their mind and how to help them commercialize and be successful.
Excellent. I've got a question from Mindy. Will the association bring back an in-person trade show after COVID? And I don't know if you know that, but throwing it out there to you.
I know Deborah Hamlin's on. She's the CEO, and I think probably for sure we need that we are a small, tight-knit industry. But Deborah raised her hand. It's better that Deborah. I don't know if she can answer this, but.
She should be able to unmute now.
Yep, I just got the unmute. Thanks for the question, and great job you're doing, Aric, and the Wet Center. Thanks. The Irrigation Association is planning to have a trade show in December of 2021 in San Diego. So as we are just getting ready to send out our exhibitor perspectives to invite our vendors, and then it will be, usually it's in the summer when we start allowing registrations for the event. So we think it'll look a little different than it has in the past based on potential social distancing and some other things, but there will be an irrigation show next year.
Thank you, Deborah.
Welcome, thanks.
So Aric, last question on my end here. I know we got to wrap up here soon. And if nothing comes to mind, no worries, just curious your thoughts. Is there an example of a startup that came in this industry, did things real well, that you could almost use as a case study, like a role model for other startups to look at and say, okay, this is how we should operate. This is the standard. Is there anything or anyone that comes to mind that you would share?
Oh yeah, there's a few, and you see quite a number of them. You know, unfortunately, you hear of more of the kind of the epic failures, but
Yeah.
there's many that make it, and I know one really well, and it's a company. Now we've acquired startups. We've acquired a startup that started in the wet center called PureSense. They were the original pioneer to really roll out soil moisture monitoring, and that was a fabulous company for us, and how it got us closer to the grower to help the grower irrigate. And I mean, I'm super happy with that. Now, that the challenge was they raised a lot of money and they had a lot of cash burn, and so I don't know if you'd call that a big success, because there was, you know, the investors lost a lot of money over time on that. That's probably not a success in the investors' eyes. But from our company standpoint, it was just a fabulous acquisition, and we've done a few others like that, Observant and Gavish and other technology acquisitions. And you know, partnership's a great way to go too. We partnered with a company called AgroLogix. They're a phenomenal satellite imagery provider that they're actually using in calculating ETC from the satellite, and we're putting that in the PureSense dashboard that we've branded Jain Logic. So that's pretty exciting. So partnerships can work too. And so AgroLogix, I think he was working in the wet center, Sumer Johal, and I met him a couple years ago, and he still has his company, but we have a fabulous partnership, and it's super tight, and that's a great way to also try to work. But the success case I would give that I think is amazing for our industry is the company called ET Water. They started in Novato, California, a little over 10 years ago. They had an idea to make smart irrigation controllers. They had a patent on smart controllers doing weather forecasting in the cloud, sending down an irrigation schedule back to the controller through cellular, and then running the valves based on the weather and the ET. And they had the original patents on this smart controller using this cloud technology, along with another company called HydroPoint that had a similar technology. They built this business up over the years by blood, sweat, and tears, boots on the ground, did a fabulous job, saved their turf landscape customers billions of gallons of water, and just a fabulous success story. Now, the owners did not get a massive payout, so it's not like the Climate Corp billion-dollar unicorn of our industry, but that was a very good deal. I think they went at a nice pace. They didn't get out over their heels.
Yeah.
Pat McIntyre managed this company very tightly, very well. Good manager. He didn't take on a lot of debt. And I think HydroPoint's done very similar on that. So these are examples of those two companies about how to go about it in our space, and they're good blueprints and models for successful startups. I think the key is they didn't take a lot of money. They got money before they needed it, and then they thought about their exit, like where they wanted to go and what they're doing today. So I'm really happy to be working with the ET Water. Another plug for the Irrigation Association. The awards, the IA awards, please go to the Irrigation Association website and check out the award winners. And I'm happy to say that Jain Unity, the new software that we are running through ET Water, actually won the People's Choice Awards in their category. So happy to hear all the people that voted for that. So thank you, Ben.
Excellent. Aric, any final closing comments or thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for what you guys are doing, and thank you for all of those that are joining us. We're in a fabulous industry, and you know, I appreciate the opportunity to work with many of you. I really enjoy my time and learning from many of those mentors that I mentioned on this call and what they've done for the industry. And we're on amazing footing and where we're going, and it's a great opportunity in the space. And so. You know, we do want to attract people to the industry, and I hope you all get the word out, and let's not keep it a big secret that this is really one of the best industries to work in. So thank you all for what you're doing, and thanks to all the nearly 500 Jain employees that you know, do such a good job, so they allow me to work with, you know, people like you all. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Aric, for taking the time to speak with us today. I hope you all got something from the session. I'm sure you did. Keep checking out your emails for the next Wet Center webinar on December 11th. We have investor Jamie Finney showing up to discuss alternative venture capital. So exactly what Aric was leading to where sometimes there can be downsides to the capital you take. What are some other solutions that may allow you to take a different growth rate and have greater control over your company? So we'll end it there, and thank you all for coming.